and let you be my guinea pig here. Okay, tell me. Allow. Okay. Tell me if you can hear this. I know you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me if you can hear it. Come on, damn it. Can you hear it?
Well, now it's just a white. I can see like the YouTube thing, but it's just a white screen.
Can you hear Mean Gene?
Barely. Like it's like really quiet. Like I know he's speaking, but it's like very, very muffled.
Okay. Then that's why I wanted to try it while you were here with me so I can start working on that, because I think I may have figured out a way through StreamYard where if we wanted to like at least hear audio of something, we could.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to fuck with it tonight. I'll fuck with it some more later when I'll try to figure out the specifics of it.
All right. Well, I am going to use the restroom real quick to give Arch a minute to try to see if he wants to get on, and then we can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. That show. Buddy. Mine. Okay. Papa. Preparation there. Some old guy today said something I haven't heard somebody say in a long time, and it made me laugh. Like, I was like, I like that expression, and it doesn't get used anymore. He's like, that guy don't know shit from Shinola. I don't even know what Shinola is, but that expression's great.
I don't know Shinola from shit. You want the truth, Roger? I don't know what you're talking about.
It's funny, though. Okay. Well, I'm assuming Archie's not coming, so.
All right.
Go ahead and get started. That'll make it even quicker. We just haven't done a WCW in almost a month, and I wanted to get one done.
I understand. It's just.
And I get being tired, too. I'm pooped today, too, so.
Like when I get off of work, sometimes I just kind of, not that I don't like talking to you guys, but sometimes I just want to come home and drink some beer and.
Oh, I'm the same way.
Watch some TV and go to bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Let's see. 6. Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. This week, it is the Brothers Maxon. I'm Nate, and this is Aaron.
Hello, everybody.
And it is just the two of us this week on the We Can't Wrestle podcast. We are glad to be back, though. It's been a minute, I know, but we've got, real shoot jobs, and we've got like 64 other podcasts now. We've kind of created a monster here, so. But we will be getting more consistent again in doing the We Can't Wrestle podcast. And it is WrestleMania season. And as you know, during WrestleMania season every year, we do a lot of WrestleMania themed episodes. And I figured leading up to WrestleMania this year, since it's WrestleMania 38, this week we'll do WrestleMania 8 from 30 years ago. Next week we'll do WrestleMania 18. And then hopefully, maybe we can even fit in an episode talking about WrestleMania 28 from a decade ago.
Yes.
But that being said, and before we get into WrestleMania 8, which, by the way, I have fond feelings in my heart for this WrestleMania.
Yes. Great one.
I would be remiss if I did not say, please, if you're not a member yet, join our Facebook group. Just search for the We Can't Wrestle podcast on Facebook. We are there, and you can join us for conversation, all kinds of fun. Sometimes we do free giveaways. Other times it's just, shooting the shit about wrestling or sharing funny memes or whatever. You know how Facebook groups work. Ours, I think, is one of the better ones, so please do join that. And check out all the other shows on the WrestleNet Radio Podcast Network, which is also available on Facebook. Just search WrestleNet Radio Podcast Network. Actually, I think if you search WrestleNet Radio, you'll find it. That being said, let's get this started. It is WrestleMania, unless there was anything else you wanted to say, Aaron.
No. Let's get the show on the road.
All right. WrestleMania 8. Indianapolis, Indiana, at the Hoosier Dome, not too far away from us. We've been to many wrestling shows in Indy, never at the Hoosier Dome, or I don't know. I think it's called something stadium now for the Colts, but the Hoosier Dome, Indianapolis, an audience of 62,167, which of course Gorilla Monsoon at the beginning has to say,
yes,
close to 70,000 in attendance, because that's the WWF. Yes. You got to round up way up in the WWF back then with the attendance figures, but that's all right.
It was probably there was actually 42,000 people.
Yeah, paid. 15,662 comp. Blase. And then he was probably wrong anyway. So, yeah.
How many people paid to come watch you work, buddy?
With your subscriber base of 5,000. Good job, Dave. Good job. Anyways, some notes, some things to note leading up to this WrestleMania that I had written down here. This is in the beginning of the unfortunate sex scandals for the World Wrestling Federation. Also, attendance is down at this time. The WWF's popularity, wrestling's popularity in general, was kind of waning in the country. And I also have down here, this is kind of a transitional WrestleMania.
Yes.
This one and 9 are both part of a transitional period in the WWF, but it's fun to watch anyway, especially because This was actually the first WrestleMania I got to see live, like not later on Coliseum Video or whatever.
Yeah.
I went to my buddy Paul's house and watched this one.
Oh shit. And I know, like you said, it's like a transitional period or whatever. But I put on my notes that in like 91, 92 was kind of like the all-star team of the 80s territory era. You know what I mean?
It was the '80s swan song for
Yeah.
the for the '80s in professional wrestling. Yes, most definitely.
Like all the holdouts that didn't want to go finally went because they know like this might be it. I need money.
And you're kind of transitioning because of the stuff coming up with steroids and everything too, by hook or by crook, whether forced or artistically, a changing in the style.
Yeah.
Also, you know, you're starting to get. We'll get to it in the show, but you're starting to get to the rise of Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and the phasing out of Hulk Hogan and people like him.
Yeah.
So a very interesting time, a very interesting WrestleMania here for the World Wrestling Federation. The show starts out, of course, with Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon introducing us to WrestleMania. You know, it's funny because you think of them, they were a fantastic commentary duo, but WrestleMania 7 and 8 are actually the only ones they called together.
Yeah.
Ironically.
I also said that I kind of put it, and I could be wrong, and I know there's other pay-per-views and stuff like that, but I think this might be the last big Bobby Gorilla announce group, or yeah, I don't say group, but like the last like huge event that they called together.
Unless you count, do you count Rumble '93 as a huge event?
Well, yeah, I mean,
but you're right though. They didn't. Vince and Bobby called SummerSlam '92, and I think Vince and Bobby called Survivor Series '92 also. I think.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but it was definitely, this was probably their last huge show they called together. And like I said, only one of two WrestleManias, as synonymous as they are as a team, they only called two WrestleManias together. Of course, they're more famous for Prime Time and Challenge anyway, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, we open up with them, and then here to sing America the Beautiful or the Star Spangled Banner, Reba McEntire. And after Reba sings the national anthem, the next person out to shoot is El Matador Tito Santana, and one of the great WrestleMania commentary lines of all time. Bobby Heenan says he thinks Reba McEntire is Tito Santana's sister. Gorilla says, what? And he goes, a Reba McEntire. One of the great WrestleMania lines of all time.
Yes. And on Reba McEntire, like, I'm not saying Reba McEntire is my cup of tea, but she's very talented. But I noticed she doesn't have an upper lip.
I did not notice that. I noticed she had huge hair, but it was the early 90s.
Everybody did. But yeah, it's like and then I look back at some other pictures. I'm like, Reba has no upper lip.
Well, the match that is next, it is Tito Santana doing the El Matador gimmick versus Shawn Michaels, a freshly out of the rockers Shawn Michaels. He's not even the Heartbreak Kid yet. He's not even singing his own music yet. The chin music isn't even his finishing maneuver yet.
Side suplex.
Yes, and Shawn, of course, comes to the ring with his main squeeze, Sensational Sherry, and what a duo these two were.
Yes, and I actually put my notes that, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but she's the female Bobby Heenan.
Mm-hmm. She's good at everything.
Good at everything, and then, hold on, sorry. Hold on.
Okay.
Damn it. Hey. Yeah, what's up? Okay, what happened? I understand. I understand. I know. And I will deal with it tomorrow. I know. I understand. And I will deal with it tomorrow. And I I don't want to say it. I'll if she's I don't know if she's there tomorrow or not. If she's not, as soon as she's there, I will talk to her because there was a lot of shit that I saw today that was mismanagement. All right. Um, I'm dealing with something at my house right now, so I'm not trying to blow you off or anything, but I'll just I'll I'll talk to her about it tomorrow. Okay. All right. All right. Bye. Sorry.
That's all right. Okay. So yes, like I said, a very young, I guess, version of, obviously, because he's just starting out, of this heel, Shawn Michaels, that is going to grow into one of the biggest stars in the history of professional wrestling. Again, along with Sherry, El Matador, Tito Santana. And overall, Aaron, what did you think of this matchup?
Um, Actually, I really like this match. I think that the El Matador gimmick was actually cool. I thought when I was a kid, I thought he looked cool in the flat and the what do you call it, the it's not a cape. What am I? Why did the name just kind of go right out of my?
The you make me forget too. Let's call it a cape.
The thing you taunt the bull with,
Yes.
and that was cool. And like I said, I thought it was a neat little gimmick, and this is just a really good. I actually kind of tried to star the matches, and I would say this is like a 3-star, hell of an opening match.
And it is, like we've said, or like we're going to say a few times, I think, during the show, again, of it being a kind of a transitional passing of the torch almost kind of show. Tito has been to the WWF since 1983. He, well, I mean, he was there before that too, but I'm saying this run, he's been there since '83. He's been at every WrestleMania, been one of the bigger mid card stars and for a good coming out for Sean here in defeating a well-established star. The finish, of course, Tito, they're on the outside. Tito tries to bring Sean back into the ring over the top rope, but Sean grabs the ropes and Tito loses his balance, and then Sean takes the pin 1-2-3. So he doesn't even really win with his finisher here, just kind of a fluke win for Sean, but he goes over and a good match. Like Aaron said, it was a good basic opening match. Two really good performers in the ring. Just Tito putting Sean over pretty much.
Yeah.
And getting his new character over. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was probably originally going to be Sean and Marty. But you know how it goes with Marty Jannetty.
Yeah, Marty being Marty.
Well, after this matchup, Mean Gene Okerlund is standing in the ring, and he simply says, "Here they come!" And out come the Legion of Doom, who are making a return. I think they hadn't been seen since around the Royal Rumble at this point. And they are bringing out for the first time in the WWF. We all know he'd been with them for years, but on TV, out for the first time in the WWF, Precious Paul Ellering is with the Road Warriors. And I remember when I was watching this at, this was 90, so at 13 years old, them coming out with Ellering. This seemed very weird and out of place, I guess, for WrestleMania, because there usually weren't those interviews that Gene would do on Superstars with the crowd behind him on the stage. They didn't do that kind of stuff at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I think it was just because, honestly, they probably could have done it in a match, but I think Vince being Vince was probably like, well, if we bring Paul Ellering in and our audience isn't going to know who the hell Paul Ellering is. You know what I mean? Because to Vince, nobody knows anything about anything unless it was in his company.
Yeah. Well, they cut the promo. And of course, Hawk has the line of, everybody thought we were a train going, what was it, train running off the tracks or out of control.
Runaway train or whatever.
Yeah, runaway train. Look who's driving the train.
Yeah.
And then Paul Ellering with from the rocking of the cradle to the rolling of the hearse. And I mean, it was a good promo segment. Unfortunately, what this is going to result in is Rocco. But but that's neither here nor there. We're talking about WrestleMania 8. So the promo happens with the LOD. Enough said about that. And then we get a look at the recent happenings between Jake the Snake Roberts and The Undertaker. This is coolest Jake Roberts ever. I like Jake Roberts a lot. Okay.
I do too.
I love Jake Roberts promos. I love Jake Roberts. But this was, for me, as a young wrestling fan, and then even as I've gotten to watch Territory Days stuff and all of that, this heel run for Jake, as much as I love a lot of the other stuff, his feud with Randy Savage, and then this thing with Undertaker is probably my favorite version of Jake Roberts.
Yes. That's actually in my notes, because like he's interviewed by Mooney or whatever, and he's talking about it. He's like, the short ride, bad landing, you know, that thing when he DDT Paul Bearer.
Mm-hmm.
In my notes, is there a more talented just piece of shit than Jake Roberts?
Right.
Like,
as a human,
like usually if you're a trash bag human being or whatever, you're kind of a shitty all around, but it's like, there's not too many redeeming qualities about this guy, but he's really good at his job.
Yes. And even Gene Okerlund says, you know, he was so convincing. I couldn't tell if he was loaded or not. You know, he was a functioning, at least work-wise, a functioning addict. Because you never could tell. I mean, obviously later years you could, like the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view that we reviewed or whatever, when he was way out of control. But when he was on the big stage at this time, there was almost nobody better as far as promos and psychology goes. And they show the really cool stuff from that last Saturday night's main event on Fox, where he's planning on hitting Elizabeth as she's coming through the curtain, and the Undertaker stops him, and what a cool way to turn the Undertaker face, you know. So anyway, the match itself, not great. You still got the match is terrible. We're still in the era of no selling Undertaker, so that doesn't help, and it's very slow and plodding. Essentially, Jake gets a DDT, but the Undertaker kicks out of it, and then eventually, the Undertaker tombstones Jake on the outside on the floor, rolls Jake in the ring, and gets the 1, 2, 3. It's probably about 7 minutes long, and that was long enough. Two great guys, don't get me wrong, two great performers, but this match kind of stunk.
And another reason this match was probably not what it could have been was because if you remember, this is the match where Jake basically held Vince up for his release.
Yes.
Because he was told he'd get the Patterson spot or whatever, and then Vince told him they weren't replacing Pat out of respect. So then Jake was just like, well, if this is just my station, I want out. And if you don't let me out of my contract, I'm not going out there and working. So I don't think Jake was totally into it, and Taker probably knew and was like, fuck this guy, So all the build up they did to it got fucking ruined by politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but a set of circumstances leading up to this behind the scenes. It makes you wonder, if that was not what I want to say. If Jake wasn't leaving, would the finish have been different? Was the feud going to continue?
Possibly, and that's also like, and I know I said like Jake's a piece of shit or whatever, but for the most part, he's an honest piece of shit too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he'll say when he did shitty things and this, that, and the other thing. This is the one time where I feel he's kind of hypocritical because he talked about how Warrior held Vince up for money at that SummerSlam.
Yeah.
And he's a piece of shit for it. And he goes, but I didn't hold Vince up for money. I held him up for my release, so it wasn't as bad. It's like, no, you're still
yeah, you still held him up. You still fucked with the show, and
and possibly fucked with another guy's money. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, the next match on WrestleMania 8 is going to be the Intercontinental title match between Roddy Piper and Bret the Hitman Hart. Before that, we get an interview segment in the back. Piper talking about being at Bret's house when he was a kid or when they were kids or whatever. And, your mom would make those sandwiches. Only one piece of bologna, but I was hungry. I didn't care.
Anyway. And,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I actually like this match and the feud. And, well, it's not really a feud, but you know what I mean? Like, this is good stuff. And the Piper being the Intercontinental Champion thing is kind of like, I attest it to like when they gave Foley the belt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a lifetime achievement award.
Lifetime achievement award. Like I think when they gave Foley the belt the first time, they probably didn't think he was ever going to have it again. He probably didn't think he was going to have it again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just hey, this guy, he's a guy he's a champion of the business. He's a champion of the boys. Let's just give him a run. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, Pipe, he's never had a belt. Let's just give him one. It ain't gonna be for a long time, that type of thing.
Yeah, and this is another of the where I referred to like a passing of the torch or a transition for the WWF because Bret had been established. He'd been established as a mid-card singles guy, but kind of in a way here with Roddy holding the Intercontinental title, even though Bret was already the Intercontinental Champion. Beating Roddy for the belt. What I want to say, he's beating a guy who is up there with Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage. He is beating a main event level star for that title, and they have a really good match. Obviously, because Roddy is Roddy. If Roddy likes you, you're gonna get good Roddy.
Yeah.
And in this match, you got great Roddy. I want to say, even though I love Roddy Piper versus Greg Valentine at Starrcade 83, I think this might be my favorite Piper match.
Oh, that's in my notes too. This is hands down Piper's like best in-ring match ever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
like psychology. And I mean, there's good psychology in it too. But I mean, like obviously he's had like the bigger matches with Hogan and shit like that. But just pure match quality. This is the best one.
I agree. They start the match out kind of both baby faces or kind of, or both heels, whatever, just kind of dicking with each other and stuff. And then it builds. And the great segment or the great part of the match where Roddy gets his hands on the bell and he grabs the bell, he holds it up over his head. And the great thing, one of those things they talk about, Jim Cornette will talk about it, or Jim Ross will talk about it, whoever will talk about it, having the crowd in the palm of your hands.
Yeah.
Having that crowd in the palm of your hands. Like, Roddy's holding the bell and the crowd is, he's looking at the crowd. Should I do it? Should I do it? And of course, they're telling him no. Maybe some of them, like us, are yelling, yeah, crack him with the fucking bell or whatever. But he's playing that crowd. And another thing that I thought about when I was watching that was another great example of that on a WrestleMania, having the crowd in the palm of your hands. And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but at WrestleMania 7 with Jake with the blindfold deal.
Yeah.
Jake and Martel, the fans participated in that match. And we've talked about that. We've talked about that event on the show before, and I talked about that then. But Piper, same deal here. The crowd is really into it, and he is working the crowd. They're working him back. He decides not to use the bell and tosses it out of the ring. And then in one of the great finishes in WrestleMania history, Piper locks on a sleeper. Brett kicks his feet off the top turnbuckle, sending them both backwards. Brett lands on top to get the pin and regains the Intercontinental Championship.
And then there's a little tension. Piper, if I remember right, Piper takes the belt and gives it to Brett, and they hug. Mm-hmm. And the family's back together.
Yes.
Because Piper's always Piper and Brett have always claimed they're cousins. I don't know if they're really cousins or not, but they've always said that.
I think it's probably more one of those things like the guy's a close friend of the family, so he's like a cousin, that kind of a deal, because he was a close friend of the Hart family. But overall, I would give this match, if we're doing stars, I didn't write stars down, but if we're doing stars out of 5, I'd give it 4 at least.
That's exactly what I gave it.
Okay.
And the only reason I gave it 4 is because, and it's not knocking their work or anything like that, but it's very hard to have like a 5-star match. And plus when it's face or whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. All right. So the next thing here is Bobby Heenan has a surprise for us, and it is Lex Luger. Now, for those of you that don't know or what have you, Vince McMahon in 1992, Lex Luger left WCW in February of 92. His last match was a Super Brawl in February. And he still had a year left on his contract. I think he had like 11 months left on his contract or something. But they negotiated that he could have a release, but he couldn't wrestle anywhere, obviously, for that year or what have you. So Vince McMahon, being the genius that he is, signed Lex to his stupid World Bodybuilding Federation. So Lex is technically at this point not a WWF superstar. He is a WBF superstar.
Yes.
So he is appearing on WrestleMania, but as a representative of the WBF.
Yes. And it went way too long.
It sure did. Lex drinking milk, calling Gorilla fat, etc., etc. Yes. But that was the gist of it. There isn't a lot to. I just think it's an interesting tidbit in wrestling that for his first year working for Vince McMahon, Lex did not work for the WWF. He worked for I always call it the stupid WBF. Gary Stridham. That's all I remember. Gary Stridham and Lex Luger. All right. Anyway, up next, we have an 8-man tag team match. Let's get everybody on WrestleMania, right? That's what this is.
Nasty Boys Mountie Repo promo was like, everybody, it's like, all of you are on cocaine. I know you're probably not. You're all sitting like you're on cocaine. And then Slaughter, Virgil, Duggan, and the Boss Man. And I was like, oh, this is C-Town. This is C-Town. House So team right here.
Yes, it is. These guys are all very familiar with working with each other at this point.
Yes.
What do I want to say? One of the things that stands out to me in this confrontation or this matchup is what a fall from grace for Sarge, huh?
Well,
the year before he was in the main event of WrestleMania, and now he's in this throwaway 8-man tag team match with all the gimmicks in it. You know, I'm just saying,
I don't know if I'd consider it a fall from grace. I think it was just, how do I say it? Like, I think like when I think of like a fall from grace, I think of like somebody that did something dumb or
maybe I used the wrong
had it all there and just fucked it all up.
I guess I used the wrong used the wrong turn of phrase. I don't know what I meant then, but I don't know.
Bob Slaughter at this time, he's in this match and everything, and he's working and all that shit, but he's already in his behind the scenes role and doing, you know what I mean? He's a working coach. He's a player coach at this point.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, Ray Combs is here from the Family Feud and making terrible jokes at the expense of the heels, of course.
What an insane retirement rate from life Ray Combs had. Jesus Christ.
No shit.
You guys don't know. Look it up. Good Lord.
I didn't write down any of his jokes. I really didn't write much down about this match. The baby faces go over. It's about 6 minutes. That tells you what you need to know. It's an 8-man tag team match that goes 6 minutes. So not everybody didn't even get a minute.
Like I said, I don't even want to knock. Like, how do I say it? Like, Ray Combs went out crazy, but he was also, when he was alive, though, he was a friend of the business.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He didn't insult it.
And he was an entertaining game show host.
Yeah, and like I said, he didn't like. He'd have the wrestlers on there, even the WCW guys and shit like that, and he didn't like tongue-in-cheek them or humiliate them or make them seem stupid or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give Combs props for that. And Bobby Heenan actually says, well, I shouldn't say actually says something funny. Bobby says something really funny in this fucking thing. Yeah, because Virgil's wearing the nose guard or whatever. Did you hear what he said about him?
I don't think so.
He said, "Look at Virgil out there. He looks like a spotted owl."
I did write down that the Mountie was like during hold on, let me go back in my notes here because I kind of skipped over it because I think we started talking about Slaughter or whatever. Where's it? I actually did my notes on my phone this time and not on a notebook. He said Mountie says something about boss man and serving hard time. You know, you say you're going to serve hard time. He actually says the only person that will be serving tonight is Virgil. And I thought that didn't age well, Jacques.
No,
that did not age well.
What a great! I know Pete. He's one of those guys that like nobody liked him. Like a lot of people didn't like Jacques Rougeau. And I get it, but he was a fucking talented dude, man.
He was. And the Mountie gimmick is great.
Yeah.
People can shit on it all they want. It's a great gimmick, and he did a great job with it. The only time that gimmick was, I could tell that gimmick had jumped the shark was then when they gave him like the gigantic shock stick.
Yeah.
And it was, the sound was overly animated and blah, blah. That got, at that point you're like, all right, it's time. And he transitioned it to the Quebecers, and that was a great tag team. So
yeah.
Up next we have, in my opinion, I'm sure a lot of people will be like, oh, in your opinion, everybody would say this probably. Maybe not. But in my opinion, one of the top 5 matches in WrestleMania history. It is Ric Flair defending the WWF Championship against the Macho Man Randy Savage. And notice I didn't say the Nature Boy Ric Flair, everybody, because in the WWF, he was not referred to as the Nature Boy. I don't think they ever referred to him as the Nature Boy.
Maybe when when Bobby first started talking about him.
I don't even know about that. I think they just referred to him as, Bobby just called him Real World's Champion Ric Flair. I don't think they ever called him the Nature Boy in the WWF that I remember.
I'd have to go back and.
I'm not saying he never wore a robe that said it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying on commentary in the presentation of the show, I don't think they ever called him that. I don't know why, but anyway, that's a very, very silly little point for me to make, but
I'd have to go back and look it up. But Savage looked pimp and like that.
Yeah, he did. And he is this feud. It's funny because when this whole thing started, it was almost underwhelming as you're watching at this time in 1992 without the hindsight, without the rose-colored glasses to look back on it. At the time, Aaron knows, I know, anybody that was a wrestling fan at this time knows the main event for WrestleMania 8 is going to be Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair.
Yeah.
There's no way it's not going to be Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. It's the match everybody wants to see for 10 years. And then they're like, nope, it's Ric Flair and the Macho Man Randy Savage. And you're like, what? But you know what? It was better that way, hindsight.
Yeah. And
what a rivalry.
Yeah. No, like I didn't draw in Los Angeles, so nobody's going to want to see it. Like, whatever. But like you said, hindsight, it was match wise, it was much better than what you would have got with Hogan and Flair.
And I love this rivalry, and I love this storyline. And this storyline was very, very not, or what do I want to say? Some of the parts of this storyline were very, very not Vince style for this time. Like, yeah. I know that they got a little bit out there with Randy and Hogan and Liz, but this was pretty much like, essentially, I was fucking your wife before you were fucking your wife. I mean, yeah. It was like, and of course, at the end of the day, it all turns out that Ric Flair was using obviously a very, a very early version of Photoshop.
Yes.
But Rick was saying that he had dated Liz before she dated Randy. And you know what I always thought was funny, though, or I think is funny now in hindsight? Okay, so if she was with Liz, or if she was with Rick before she was with Randy, that would have been in like 83, 84. So, but then in the pictures, Rick looks like this.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but that's the WWF, and it was what it was. It was still cool. It was still a cool storyline, and it gave Randy the opportunity to beat the fuck out of Ric Flair. That was the point, right?
Yeah. And Perfect, he does a great job in this, being the antagonist manager and like Bobby, Ric Flair, and Mr. Perfect. Fucking awesome. Like, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I wish, like, I don't know, those three guys together, it's like, could you get like three more talented dudes?
Right.
And then, like, you know, sometimes you look at a group and you're like, okay, I get it. You know, like one of them might seem out of place or whatever. But it's like a really good group is when you can actually know, like, in real life, these guys would hang out together.
Yep.
And in real, like, if it was real, if wrestling was real, Mr. Perfect, Bobby Heenan, and Ric Flair would all have gravitated towards each other. Like, these Absolutely. Three guys would be best fucking friends.
And they would what do I say? They would, yes, you're right. They would hang together. They would be the best of friends. Now, they wouldn't at all ever completely trust each other, but yeah. when it comes to everybody else around them, I trust these two guys more than I trust everybody else. And Aaron knows I was so excited when we were at Heroes and Legends last time around that I was able to find the classic Jack's three pack that I've been looking for forever of Bobby, Perfect, and Ric Flair together. And you're right. It's funny because it's one of the greatest factions in wrestling history. It lasted what, a little bit over a year, and during their time they were a faction, only one of them wrestled.
Yeah.
But it's still one of the greatest factions in wrestling history.
Yes. It's like these three guys belong together.
Mm-hmm.
And if you would have like added another person, you'd be like, get rid of that guy. If they would have been like, oh, Rick Martel's with them too, be like, no,
get out of here.
these three guys.
Well, again, these guys have what I would consider I don't know that I can find a flaw in this match, so I would actually give it 5 stars.
I gave it 4.5, and I'll tell you why when you get there.
Okay.
Or if you want me to tell you, I can tell you.
No, go ahead, because the only other thing I was going to cover really was the finish. So,
the reason I gave it 4.5 is there's one spot, and Flair fucked it up. It was Flair's fault. It's when he hits the guardrail. Flair obviously I don't know if it's guardrail or what. I can't remember. It is. It's the rail. He gets head off the rail and thrown back in the ring, and you obviously see him blade. And and usually sometimes when I see it, I'm like, oh, the camera guy should have known what he was doing. Like he blatantly.
He wasn't supposed to blade though.
No, he wasn't, and he wasn't supposed to, but he obviously did it, and it's just like, ugh. That's the only critique I have of this match. And then one of the other highlights of this match is, and I don't, you probably didn't write it down because you're not as much of a pervert as me. I don't know how to say it. Like, Liz had always been a beautiful woman. Don't get me wrong, okay? But Liz was like wine. You know what I mean? Like, even like when she got to WCW, it's like she's hotter in WCW than she was in the WWF. But like me now as a 38-year-old man, Liz in that purple dress, I was like, good Lord.
All the way live.
You're looking fine, Liz.
Before the feud, I just said it out loud through me lips. Before this feud, and you can, in any of his promos before he came to the WWF, did Flair ever say that a woman was all the way live, like in an NWO promo? Or was during the...
You mean an NWA promo?
Yeah.
Said NWA promo. He probably said it about woman.
Okay. Because this is just when he's talking about I just remember in one of the segments when he's talking about the magazine spread or whatever, or the pictures that he has of Elizabeth, he says she's looking all the way live. I was like, is that the first time he ever said it? Because then every man in the wrestling world took that phrase. You know what I mean? We all use it. We're like, Trish was all the way live. And I'm just like, was that the beginning during this? I'm
probably pretty sure he probably said it about woman at some point. And that's like, how do I say it? Like, I don't think Flair. You might tell me, oh, you're crazy. But I don't think Flair ever, and I'm not going to say Flair ever cheated on his wife. Obviously, he cheated on his wives. But I don't think Flair ever cheated with an actual female in the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I know him and Sherry were buddies and they joke and they flirtatious in real life and shit like that. But I don't think he ever like banged Sherry. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't even think he probably even ever thought, hey, I want to bang Sherry. And obviously he didn't think that way about Elizabeth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or Flair would have, and that's why part of me thinks that, because if that ever happened, everybody in wrestling would have known it. You know what I mean? And there's no way that Randy Savage would have let this fucking storyline go on with Liz. You know what I mean?
So you don't think he I mean, he married her later in life. You don't think he was porking Fifi in '93?
I don't think so. I think he was probably flirting with her and shit, but I don't think he did. But I'm saying all this because I think he was professional enough to know, you don't dip your pen in the company ink.
Right.
And this is what I'm going to say. I think he said it about woman because of all the chicks that he was with in the wrestling business. I think he really wanted to get women.
Oh yeah,
That was his favorite
oh, yeah.
one. You know what I mean? That was his favorite one. Like, if I could do it, I would do it. But that's Kevin's woman, you know, and him and Kevin were tight and shit like that. But like, I think he's like when he's like, oh, baby doll out here, the perfect 10 and Dark Journey and Liz and all that. I think he was playing it up, you know, and friends with them. But I think when he's like, woman, oh woman, won't you marry me now? Good Lord, look at her. Like, that was he was fucking
he was dead serious.
He was shooting on that shit. Like, good Lord.
The finish of this match, Randy kind of throws Rick's cheating ways back in his face by rolling up with the schoolboy. Of course, like I said, Flair blades during this match, like Aaron alluded to. Savage gets the 1, 2, 3, and then after the match, Ric Flair plants his lips on Liz's lips, as he would call them, your hot, sweet lips, or however he puts it. Which makes obviously Randy Savage go insane, and we'll get to that later in the promo. One of my favorite promos of all time is coming up. But like I said, overall, I love this match, and Randy wins the WWF title, which not only did none of us expect the main event for WrestleMania to not be Flair and Hogan, and it wasn't, we also didn't expect Randy Savage to beat Ric Flair for the title at WrestleMania. I remember even at 13, me and my buddy talking about it, going, oh, Randy's going to go crazy and get disqualified or something. There's no way he's winning the title. Ric Flair just won it.
It's like in the middle of the show.
Yeah. But that was not to be, and Randy Savage is the new WWF champion at this point. Yes. And now... Oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to, like, to me, this is the main event, and it should have been the last match, but it's fucking Hogan and Vince big dicking.
Yeah. So we get a promo, an angry Ric Flair and Kurt Hennig and Bobby Heenan, and go ahead, Aaron. You look like you had something to say.
It's funny because like they have their set, you know what I mean, like the locker room set or whatever behind them
with the payphones and the
it's funny you brought up the payphone, because if you notice, like, they're all upset and everything, and they're supposed to be in this locker room setting, and Bobby gets mad and he smacks his towel up against the payphone, and then the payphone moves.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
I mean, I've watched this show so many times. When I watched it quick for the show here, I didn't, you think I've got it all memorized. I'm just watching it to refresh my brain a little bit. But I didn't even think to look for that. I remember that. Yeah. Not to mention you look back on it now and you're like, wow, all those locker rooms look so similar back then. Because they would just have that, they would just take that locker room set to every pay-per-view or whatever.
Bobby was so mad that he was so mad, or that tie had so much starch in it.
I was gonna say that was that thick Egyptian cotton that
it moved the payphone.
All right, and then of course after that promo, we get a video about Sid, and he's crazy now with Harvey Whippleman. He is Psycho Sid heading into the match with Hulk Hogan. Rick Martel.
You going to talk about Sid blowing up that Barbacell all over his face?
Yeah, true. He goes crazy on the barbershop
and blows up some Barbacell. And it was not supposed to happen, but it happening made it even better, because it's like, oh my God, he doesn't even care. He's got Barbacell all over. Like, you know what I mean? But anyway.
The greatest thing about Psycho Sid, the character Psycho Sid, and that, I think we've talked about it before, but that's where Vince McMahon's a genius. Because he was like, half the time this guy's promos, he goes way off in the fucking stratosphere. You don't know what he's talking about. things happen, like like this thing, like this kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Shit like this happens to this guy, and it just adds to his character. It makes him look even more psycho.
And honestly, I think probably, how do I say it? I guarantee that Vince McMahon, before they signed Sid, had probably never seen a Sid UD promo. He had probably only seen clips of whatever anybody wanted him to see, but saw this guy and was like, Jesus Christ, look at him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then when he heard him talk, he was like, oh, because he wanted him to be the new Hogan.
Yeah.
And Sid was even like, I don't want to be the new Hogan. And I don't think it was that Sid didn't want the Hogan money or anything, but I think Sid was probably like, ooh, I don't think I can be the next Hogan.
I don't think I can be,
I can be the best heel you got. Like, no, I don't want to be Hogan. And plus, Sid did not want that responsibility. He wanted to be able to be home when he could be home and whatever.
Play softball.
Yeah, do whatever, be with his kids and shit like that. But it's like when I first fucking heard those promos, everybody else was like, see what you got, Vince? See what you bought? And Vince was like, what do you mean? He's psycho. He's insane. He doesn't even know what he's saying. Like nobody booked Sid Vicious like Vince McMahon.
Nope.
Nobody.
Well, up next we get a promo from Rick Martel talking about his match coming up with the Tonka. Talk about
one thing. That's when the Lumbee Indians come out and
they're dancing. They do.
They're doing their thing, and Gorilla Monsoon's like, "Look out there at the Lumbee Indians," and Bobby Heenan's like, "Yeah, look at all those lumpy Indians out there."
And then Rick Martel cuts a promo that, again, much like Jacques Rougeau's line from earlier, this promo doesn't necessarily age well, but it has some good old-fashioned Henny Youngman style jokes in there. Like, I have some reservations about, yes, things like that. But
don't forget the I like the reservations one, but my favorite one is like, and then I saw Tatanka outside scalping tickets.
Jesus. Well, there's not a lot to say about the match. Tatanka goes over. Once again, another match where you've got a newer guy that's come in. And I mean, he's just like maybe like a week or two before this, they've kind of dropped calling him Tatanka Chris Chavis. He's very new to the company. But again, getting put over by a veteran here, transitioning, from Rick Martel, who had been there since 87. And I'm not saying Martel's, he kind of is on his way out at this point. Now he's around a little longer.
He's up there until at least like right at the beginning of like 96.
Yeah, well, he becomes like Crush, like one of those guys that's kind of in and out.
Yeah,
like he's not full time, I guess, or he's not on TV every week like he would have been, But I know what you're saying. I mean, he was around. I know he was, in '94. Him and Razor are the last two in the Intercontinental Battle Royal. But anyway,
Martel's the guy putting Virgil over on the C-Town fucking house show.
Well, and after this, he goes over to wrestle Shawn at SummerSlam. So, anyways, after that, we get some interviews. The Natural Disasters and the WWF Tag Team Champions, Money Incorporated, who are going to have a match up here. The Natural Disasters were screwed over by their manager, Jimmy Hart. He took the money from Ted DiBiase. I want to make a note, or I have a note here. I do not like the Natural Disasters as baby faces. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I get it. I thought you were just gonna say you didn't like the Natural Disasters.
Oh no! I think they're a great monster heel tag team.
I say, how do you not like Earthquake? That dude was the shit.
No, I don't like them. Like they even get to the point during their babyface run where they come down and they make them smile. like they're smiling and slapping hands and stuff, and I'm just like, oh God, that's bad.
If you're fat and ugly, you should just be fat and ugly and be bad.
Exactly. Nobody wants to see you smile, fatty.
Yeah.
But that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the WWF Tag Titles, Money Incorporated, and the Natural Disasters. You know, you didn't know it at the time, or I know you didn't, and I didn't, because we weren't smart, quote unquote. We both knew wrestling was a show, but we weren't smart. We weren't dirt sheet readers or anything at this time. I'm in my early teens. Aaron isn't even in his teens yet. But you didn't know it at the time. Ted DiBiase was teaming up with IRS because his back was all fucked up. Yeah. A tag team schedule was going to be much better for Ted at this point. So they put him with Mike Rotunda as Money Incorporated.
The only time, I hate to say it because he wasn't a terrible wrestler or anything like that, but it's the only time that I enjoy. Like, that IRS character is the only thing that Mike Rotunda ever did that I enjoy.
Me too. And again, like you said,
and I want to say, like, okay, the Varsity Club was cool because he was with people,
and within something like that, he can be the good wrestler.
Yeah, but him on his own, like, I've watched like Mike Rotunda promos where he was just the Florida heavyweight champion. I'm like, oh my god, if a Trisket was a person, it would be Mike Rotunda.
I don't know how much like early 80s Mid-Atlantic you watch, but watching for some reason in like 82-ish, the Crockett's were really trying to push Mike Rotunda. Like, he was all over that Mid-Atlantic show. And there would be like some episodes of that show where fucking poor old Uncle Bob Cottle would have to interview Mike Rotunda like 2 or 3 times. The dude would be out there, and Cottle's, and Cottle's holding that, and Cottle's like Gene, like if he sees somebody's getting off the rails or whatever, he's good at pulling them, like saying something to pull the interview back together. He would just sit there with that big ass microphone of his, and Mike Rotunda would just be holding his belt, going, you know what, I wrestled at Syracuse, and when I wrestled at Syracuse, my coach and it's just like, oh my god, is this ever gonna fucking end? And Bob Cottle looks like he's going, Jesus Christ, is this ever gonna fucking end? And
he's probably falling asleep. I mean, he's like 65 then. And then he put this fucking Trisket in front of him. He's just like, ugh, dozing off and shit.
He's like, I have more. He's like, I have more.
Oh yeah, I'm here.
I have a more interesting time interviewing enhancement talent Mike Siebert than I do this guy.
Jesus Christ. Like
anyway,
go ahead.
There's not a lot to say about this match, tag team title match. DiBiase and IRS pretty much sell for the Disasters for about 8 minutes, and then DiBiase and it is funny when DiBiase gets knocked down in that one spot and he rolls out and he just grabs that fucking belt and he's gone. Like, IRS kind of takes his lead. But Ted DiBiase made that look so realistic. Like, he was really just like, I'm fucking done with this shit. I'm out of here.
Can't do nothing with these fat fucks. Just bounce.
So they just grab their belts and go, and the Natural Disasters win.
Something that even as a Sorry, my internet cut out there for a second.
It's okay. I wrote the time down. You were saying even as a kid.
Oh, like as a kid, I didn't even think about it, and then the older I got, I thought about it more. Like, they talk about like, oh, if you lose, you don't get the winner's purse money, which is something they don't talk about in wrestling that they should now. Like, you know, they talk about like, oh, if you lose, you still get paid, but you don't get paid as much, you know? Like, I think the gimmick with Money Inc. being willing to take the loss wasn't even just that they got to keep their belts. It was like, we get to keep our belts, but Ted didn't give a shit because he was a millionaire. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
he doesn't need the winner's purse.
I don't need the winner's purse. I'm a millionaire.
Yeah, fucking winning at professional wrestling is just Ted DiBiase's mad money.
Yeah, it's just me wanting to be a dick.
Can we take a break? I want to piss. I don't want to piss. I gotta piss.
That's fine.
And I might have a cigarette too, but I'll be right back.
Right. I'll put the recycling out.
Okie dokie. Let me write this down real quick. The next match, I wrote down two funny things about this. The next match is very short. It is the Rocket Owen Hart versus Skinner.
Yes.
Steve Kern. And one of the things that I wrote down here that I thought was funny was like, I didn't put two and two together, but here comes Owen Hart out to the Heavenly Bodies music. And then also in this match, Skinner does, and I laughed. I laughed so hard. I laugh so hard every time I see it because I think this this is like one of the most piece of shit moves in the history of pro wrestling.
When he does that backflip and blows it in his face.
Yes. I mean, we have, there's the green mist and stuff. People have had stuff thrown in their face, all the time. But for Skinner to spit the tobacco in Owen's face, and Owen sells it great. He's like,
Who doesn't sell it great is the commentators. Like, it just happens, and they don't even like mention it really.
Yeah.
Like, the whole story of this match is like, yeah, it's just the whole thing was rushed and just, I don't know, just seemed out of place. I would have much rather seen Steve Kern and Owen Hart have like a 10-minute match than watch that fucking 8-man tag.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did read a while back. I don't know what I was even reading it for, but I read an article about WrestleMania. I think it was I was trying to find out why Davey and Berserker wasn't on the show. But also a couple of the things on here, the reason the 8-man tag was so short, the reason this was so short was they essentially booked this like they had booked prior WrestleManias, where they threw a bunch of matches on the show, kind of threw matches together. And then hindsight, most WrestleManias were over 3 hours long. This one, they wanted to be under 3 hours. So a lot of stuff got cut down in time. But yeah, essentially, this match is about 90 seconds. I think the whole match, they don't even talk, like you said, they don't talk about the match. They talk about Sid and Hogan.
Yeah.
And Skinner tosses Owen over the top, but Owen skins the cat back behind Skinner's back and executes the O'Connor roll for the win. And rolls up Skinner, wins the match, and that's that for Owen Hart's second WrestleMania.
Yes.
And I think Steve Kern's only WrestleMania.
Well, no. It's not true.
No?
Yeah, he's at WrestleMania 9.
Touche. Yes. He is second Doink. That is correct.
He's Doink the second.
But like I said, like we said, not a lot to write about this match because it wasn't much of a match to begin with. So Owen Hart goes over Skinner. And now we go into the main event, Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice. And some stuff leading up to this. They show Sid's slide into psychodom by not getting the shot at the WWF title for WrestleMania, turning on Hulk Hogan on Saturday night's main event. They show the footage of Vince McMahon interviewing Hulk Hogan on Primetime Wrestling. I think it was a Primetime Wrestling, or maybe it was a March to WrestleMania. I don't remember. But, the very emotional, is this the last we'll see of Hulk Hogan? As they're pushing that this might be Hulk Hogan's last match. But Hogan emphasizes that he's not leaving. If he does retire, he's not retiring because of Sid. So,
well, this is also another instance of Hulk Hogan's actually the heel. Just saying.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, you can say Sid turned on Hogan on Saturday night's main event, but if you ask me, Hogan turned on Sid first at the Royal Rumble. it's supposed to be every man for himself. And then Hogan's all butthurt because Sid eliminated him. What was Sid supposed to do? Eliminate himself? Selfish ass Hogan.
And this was the first time, I'm glad you brought that up, because this was the first time as a kid where I called shenanigans on the WWF. Because much like WrestleMania, I had went to my buddy's house to watch the Royal Rumble. So I watched the Royal Rumble live. And that crowd was cheering the shit out of Sid.
Yeah.
And then the next week on WWF Superstars, when they showed that footage, when they rolled that beautiful bean footage of the Royal Rumble, the crowd was mysteriously booing the shit out of Sid. And I was like, what? That is not what I saw when I watched the Royal Rumble. And you hear the crowd booing and it sounds so overly done, but people are jumping up and down in the background. And yeah, that was the first time as a kid where, like, you know, it kind of flipped my switch where I called bullshit on the promotion. Like, what? But yeah. And then, of course, the Sid promo here where he calls Gene Okerlund
fat little ball-headed oaf.
Fat ball-headed little oaf. And Gene's like, oh. No. And I bet he does cut a passionate promo here. You know, I don't give a damn, et cetera, et cetera. It's very convincing. And, you know, people can say what they want about Sid, and it sounds like he's going to get in the Hall of Fame, and he deserves it. When he was on, he was a great imposing heel.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, Jesus Christ, we've talked about it before. If you're going to draw a professional wrestler, he's one of the guys you're going to draw, the big jaw and the big shoulders, and that he's tall and he's built and he's just fucking massive.
So it that's the first I heard that it sounds like Sid's going in this year. So far it's Taker, Vader, and Sid.
Yeah, it's the big man year of the Hall of Fame.
Good. I think Vader. How do I say it? Like, to me, like, when guys go in, I'm more interested on, like, who are they going to pick to put him in? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I know sounds like Vince is putting in Taker, which is fine. I would have, and I like think sometimes deep in my mindset. Sometimes, like, I was like, man, Godfather should do it. That's his old buddy. You know what I mean? They started whatever, but and then Vader, I think Mankind is going to do it.
I do too.
And then, like, we just brought up Sid. I'm like, there's like two people that I think would be putting Sid in, and one of them they're never going to do. And I think Harvey Whippleman should do it because that was his boy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I think I have a feeling it'll be Shawn.
Yep, I that's what I was about to say with Shawn. As far as Vader goes, Mick's really their only option if you're trying to get somebody that was integral in his career.
Yeah. Because I mean, the other person's staying and he can't do it.
Yeah, and Corny won't do it. Corny's not going to travel to do it and shit.
Yeah.
Harley's passed on, of course. So maybe Stan Hansen.
Maybe.
But yeah,
the conservative pick is probably Mick.
Mm-hmm. And I agree.
Maybe they'll bring his boy out and give him the thing and and maybe that'll get him to sign him back because I actually liked his kid.
Yeah,
kid worked there. But
yeah, I agree with the Sid thing too. Probably Shawn. Out of anybody that's available, you know, I mean, that would be the person he would be the most connected to anyone that's available.
Yeah, and I don't want to say liked him because I think Shawn just likes Sid. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. The whole clique does.
Yeah, that's the other thing that like worked out good, like really good for Sid in like 95 through 97 is that the clique liked him. If those guys wouldn't have liked Sid, Jesus Christ. They would have destroyed him.
Yeah.
Would have fucking destroyed him.
Well, this match between Hulk and Sid it's your basic Hulk Hogan big man match until the end. Sid hits the power bomb on the Hulkster, the 1-2, and then Hogan kicks out, of course. Hogan does the big brute. He does the big boot, the leg drop, and then Sid kicks out. He kicks out of the leg drop. But here's the caveat, folks. He wasn't supposed to. And he didn't do it maliciously. He did it because the guy who's supposed to run in, who is a new character at this point in the WWF, Papa Shango,
was late.
He was late. Some say he missed his cue. He says whoever was supposed to tell him out to go out to the ring missed their cue to tell him to go out to the ring. But either way, the kick out of the leg drop. Harvey Whippleman, being the pro that he is, improvises here, jumps in the ring, jumps on Hogan, and gets the disqualification to still give the win to Hulk Hogan. And then, I don't know. Again, we've talked about on the show before how much we all love the Papa Shango character. Not a great introduction for him because then he just kind of wanders out to the ring. He doesn't run out or anything. He just kind of wanders out like he's just been released from the hospital or whatever.
A little stoned, which he probably was.
So, like, he should have an IV with him. Like he's, but anyway, he comes out to the ring, and Sid and Papa Shango proceed to beat up Hulk Hogan. And then it's the return of the Ultimate Warrior. They play the music. Warrior comes out, saves Hulk Hogan, and the two of them celebrate in the ring to end WrestleMania 8. First of all, the match, it is what it is. I have it down as 2.5 stars because it's a spectacle. It's a Hogan match. Him and Sid fit well together, but it's by no means a technical masterpiece. And like you said earlier, the main events should have been flipped.
Yeah, and can you believe they tried to make people believe that Kerry Von Erich was actually the Ultimate Warrior?
I remember, and you remember, those of you that weren't alive at the time or weren't
wrestling. By the way, Kerry Von Erich wasn't the Ultimate Warrior.
No, but it was a thing, people. Not even at some points somebody wouldn't even say it was Kerry Von Erich. But because when the Warrior left, he was insanely jacked. He was roided to the gills. And at this time he had slimmed down a little bit. I mean, he's still very muscular. But I think he'd got off the gas for a while.
Yeah. His hair wasn't like the feathered blonde deal. And
There literally people thought it was a different Ultimate Warrior.
Yes. These are the same people that said the original Undertaker died. So now there's a new Undertaker.
Oh, wrestling fans.
They're like, what do you mean there's a new Undertaker? Well, the other one died. So that was a new Undertaker. Why do you think there's a new Undertaker? Well, he's got tattoos now. Like, well, you know, people get tattoos, right?
You might have a case if you said he had tattoos and now he has none.
He doesn't.
Yeah, you might have a case. You might have a case, but yeah, the other way around, not so much. But yeah, this Ultimate Warrior myth, and that was one of the rumors that the original Ultimate Warrior had died.
Yes,
and there was a new Ultimate Warrior. But no, it was the same old. It was the same old piece of shit Jim Hellwig.
Yes,
as the Ultimate Warrior here, but at this time, a really big deal.
Yes, he's the example of what I was talking about before, where a guy's a piece of shit, but he's also shitty at his job. Like he's the opposite of Jake Roberts. It's like he's a shitty human being and he sucks at his job.
So overall,
every year that I get older, I hate the Ultimate Warrior even more. It's just like, oh my God.
There he is.
Why did I even like you when I was 10?
Because you were a stupid kid.
Yeah. Oh my God. Your promos suck. Your work sucks. Then I hear your fucking real life comments. Like,
I agree. I absolutely agree with you though. Like over the years, as I grew as a fan and started looking at and I know Jim Cornette hates the term work rate. He said nobody in a wrestling locker room's ever said the word work rate, but it's the expression Mark's used, so I'm going to use it. As I grew up and appreciated work rate and realized when I was a kid, I didn't realize why I liked Mr. Perfect. And then as Bret Hart. But then as I grew up, I realized, oh, I really liked watching them wrestle. But anyway, I'm getting to my point. As I grew up, I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I see through a lot of the Hulk Hogan stuff now. But I would never, ever say I don't like Hulk Hogan. I like to watch Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Ultimate Warrior is completely different. Like if as far as Warrior goes, I'm watching it for the train wreck. I'm watching it for the, the blood dripping through the veins and the stupid shit.
This guy's junk.
All right. So overall, our thoughts, WrestleMania 8. What rating did you give the show?
I'd give it 4 out of 5.
Same.
And like I said, it's because it's like I said, it's like it's not as much of this as like what the Royal Rumble was, but like I said, it's like the ending of like some of these territory type people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's the literal end of the territory days. All those guys are fading away. Like the big last hurrah is the Royal Rumble 92.
Yeah.
Where they're all in it. And then who wins? Ric Flair. It's like Ric Flair won the Yeah, he won the 80s. Ric Flair won the 80s. And now we're moving on to WrestleMania 8. And like I said, kind of a transitional show. WrestleMania 9 is even more so. But that being said, like I said, I'd say 4 out of 5 as well. And that is WrestleMania 8. And like I said, everyone, next week we are hoping to do WrestleMania 18 with the Hogan, Rock, Triple H, and Chris Jericho. And then WrestleMania 28 the week after. And that is one of the Cena Rock WrestleManias, I believe. So any parting words for our listeners this week, Aaron?
Just thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for contributing to the shows and keep on listening. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. I agree. And until next week, we will see everybody. WrestleMania season is upon us. I hope everybody's out there is having a wonderful, wonderful week, and we'll see you next time around. Have a great week, everybody.
All right.